The start of Beacon was an auspicious event for Jean. It had been in the multitude of lives he lived before, and probably be long into the future, until he somehow brought a victory and presumably ended this torture. Even now, when he had no intention of attending, he couldn't help but keep an eye on the date, if only out of paranoia that something might happen to mess things up. There was a little over a week left until Beacon began, and as the days ticked by, Jean found himself slowly relaxing. Which was why what had just been announced was such a shock. "We're going to Vale?" Amber cheered loudly, hands clenched before her tiny chest. "We're going to Vale?" Jean whispered, leaning back in horror. The other 6 girls were somewhere in between, though most of them leaned on the side of joy and excitement. Only for a long weekend. Juniper giggled as she sat at the table beside Nicholas. The entire family had been called for an impromptu announcement by the pair, and there'd been a fair bit of whispering over what the reason might be. Coral's jokes that Jean had probably gotten someone pregnant had earned her a soaking mess of hair, courtesy of his orange juice. But now, with this new announcement, she didn't even seem to care. Eyes wide as she smiled, lank hair dripping thick, orange liquid. 3 days to be precise. Think of it as a holiday. Jean allowed himself to breathe once more. 3 days. A long weekend. That was fine. For a moment he actually dreaded that this might be something related to Beacon. Maybe that his father had decided to enroll him after all. But that was a stupid idea. Surely. His father hated the idea of him learning to be a hunter. "What's the occasion?" Jean asked before anyone else could interrupt. "And can I skip it?" "Denied." Juniper's hand slammed down on the table with the force of a sledgehammer, despite the wide smile that was firmly affixed to her face. "This is a family holiday, but also something to celebrate your full recovery, so no skipping." Balls. If there was one thing she would never shift on, it was their family trips. Even recovering and injured, he'd been bloody wheeled out to the lake each month. He loved it, for sure, but right now, that same determination for them to spend time together as a family was only causing him strife. He didn't want to be anywhere near Vale. How can he not want to visit Vale? Amber shrieked into his ear. His little sister had started to fill out a little in 2 years, gaining an extra 4 inches of height. Despite that, or maybe because of how they continued treating her, she still acted like a little child. Probably his fault there, since he continued to spoil her rotten. "It's just a city." Jean rolled his eyes. "It's not like going to somewhere like Valco or Atlas." Funny you should mention Atlas. Nicholas spread some pieces of paper out across the table, like Beowulf's to a manic depressive. His sisters flocked around to look. Jean waited for them to finish gasping and grabbing before he came over. "Tickets to Weissnee's final concert?" Jean read aloud. This must have cost some serious line. As much as he hadn't recognized her originally, Weiss had been quite the famous little prodigy, and for more than just her family name. Now that he thought of it, he'd never actually heard her sing. Asking her to a Beacon would have been a risky proposition. "I know someone who was able to do me a favor," Nicholas grinned. "Saved the venue owner's brother a while back and he was happy to sell me 10 tickets for the price of 5. Juniper leaned over to press a kiss to the man's lips, the 3rd through 11th wheels in the room groaning and looking away. Even 5 tickets though. That must have cost him a lot of line. Even more so if it was publicly advertised as her final concert. The connection was obvious. This was to celebrate his recovery and he wanted to be a musician. Weiss was a musician his own age, who had hit it big. They had splurged all of this on something they thought he would like. Something they could do to help and inspire him. "I've always wanted to hear her sing." Jean smiled down at the tickets. He could hear the relief in the way they both relaxed, and he could imagine the small smile they shared between themselves, happy that they had been able to make him feel better. It wasn't a lie anyway, so long as this wasn't anything to do with being a hunter, and it clearly wasn't. It would actually be pretty cool to see what she sounded like, Plus, it wasn't like he was going to actually be anywhere near her. The concert hall would be packed, and he'd be one among tens or thousands of faces. What was the risk? This is going to be fucking awesome. Hazel cheered, ignoring the automatically rebukes from Juniper and Sapphire. Vale is like the place to be. Apparently Hazel had noticed the look their mother was giving her. So when's the concert anyway? Jean's hand flicked out to steal the ticket from Coral's hand, reading the details as she tried to snatch it back. Well, this weekend? Like, tomorrow? That didn't leave much time for any kind of preparations. Though, maybe that was for the best. This way, they would at least be in and out before Beacon even started. I've booked us on a passenger train tomorrow, Nicholas said. It'll take us in the morning and we'll be in Vale after a 3-hour journey. From there, we'll have time to get to the hotel, find our rooms, and get ready. The concert will be that evening. Then you lot will have the following day to explore around Vale as much as you wish. Oh my gosh. We have to visit the library. I hear it has over a museum is famous for. See what the clubbing is like, and Jean. Amber's voice drags the tension away from the hurdle of girls discussing their plans. His younger sister wasn't quite so cute and innocent anymore. In fact, she was starting to look a lot like Juniper. He wouldn't be beating the boys off with a stick. He would need a crowbar. We have to visit the arcade in Vale. Imagine all the games. Glad to see some things never change. The train rattled as it ran across the tracks, shaking the carriages almost rhythmically. A constant ka-chunk, ka-chunk that was surprisingly relaxing once you got used to it. Nicholas had never really travelled by train much. Most hunters needed to be shipped around in a hurry and so used bullheads. It was also amusing watching his daughters alternate places at the windows, staring out at the scenery as it whizzed by. The red trees native to Forever 4 were always a beautiful sight, despite the danger they always presented. Still, on a vast piece of metal moving at great speed across the landscape, it wasn't like the Grim would have enough time to locate them, and he pitied any which tried to stand on the tracks to stop the train. "Where's Jean?" his beautiful wife asked, cutting into his musings as he looked back to his left. Wait, hadn't he just been sat there? "I saw him talking to some young girl in the hallway," Lavender helpfully reported. Nicholas's head fell into his hands as his wife's teeth started to grind. God damn it. "Your head is in the clouds," her partner criticized, slowly sheathing his crimson blade as the SDC droids around them fell dead. The wind from the nearby forest whooped through her hair, bringing it with the scent of nature tingled by spilled dust and oil. Better bring it back down to Remnant while we're on the job. He didn't wait for her response as he turned away, leaping a few carriages deeper through the train. He never did wait for her. Adam was changing. Or was she the one that was changing? It wasn't so easy to figure out anymore. "I'm fine." Blake Belladonna lied, as she caught up with her partner, dashing alongside him as they burst through a defense droid and the door it was guarding. Another transport carriage, filled with labelled metal containers. Dust, the very fuel for the economy, machinery, and even weaponry. But more than just that, this was dust mined by the oppressed brethren. Faunus had suffered and perhaps even died for this. Would destroying it vindicate them? Blake wasn't so sure, but it would send a message to the SDC. No matter how bad things are getting, I can't argue with the results. The SDC had never paid attention to them before. What's a bunch of disgusting animals up in arms to a company as powerful as they? Even if she hated the direction they were going, it was worth it to be noticed, right? To be feared. "Keep an eye out," Adam ordered as he swept into the room, long blade flickering left and right as he stalked towards the center of the room. The entire frame of the carriage shook as the train rumbled across the tracks, but for trained fighters such as they, it was nothing. "Watch the door whilst..." His words were cut off as the sound came from nearby. Blake rushed to stand beside Adam, Gumball shroud in gun form as she aimed towards the nearby crates. The unmistakable sound of something shuffling behind it, Too big to be a simple robot. Too organic to be a robot. Get out here and I might be merciful, Adam called. Blake's eyes twitched as she kept her weapon trained on the containers, ready to take the shot should a soldier's weapon appear over the top. Or maybe even a Grim who had managed to leap on into the train. It could even be... A naked woman? I'm sorry, the girl cried as she appeared out from behind the crates, wearing not a stitch of clothing, but holding a few crumpled articles in such a way as to hide her breast and crotch. Short with mousy brown hair and grey eyes, she couldn't have been older than 20, and was clearly neither soldier nor Grim. What? Adam made to grab the woman and stop her, only for his hands to freeze as he realized exactly what that would mean grabbing. That small amount of shock gave the woman the chance she needed to dart away. Neither of them made to follow. Not that Blake would have done so anyway. The girl would likely be unwilling to speak about what she had done, and it wasn't like either of them would be sticking around to get arrested anyway. That the White Thing had done this would be obvious. Well... Feeling a small sense of amused disbelief despite the tense situation, not to mention the flustered look on her partner's face, at the very least, it helped to calm her frayed nerves. I can't say I expected that. Damn humans. Adam didn't seem to see the comedy. Why didn't you stop her? Why didn't you? Blake shot back. Adam's mouth opened, then closed, before he glanced away with a muffled grumble and sheathed his blade. Blake sighed as she did the same with Gumble Shroud, leaning against a nearby container as he went about setting some packages across the carriage. Once upon a time, Adam Torres had laughed and joked with the best of them, even when times were difficult. She missed that. This will destroy the dust, right? Blake asked, watching as Adam keyed in some codes into the case before him. She trusted him to set the timer, as he had done the last few carriages they had been through. It would be more than enough for that, yes. He sounded amused, which raised all kinds of alarm bells in her head. More than enough. What did he mean by that? Adam. You realize the first few cars of this train are for passengers, right? What about all the civilians? He couldn't mean to place them in danger. Not when they didn't have anything to do with the oppression of the SDC. Not when they weren't involved in any of this. Adam didn't even look at her as he answered. What about them? Adam, no. Blake whispered, already firming her resolve. You can't do this, Adam. Yeah, Adam. A voice that decidedly not hers or Adam's said, Don't be a dick. Blake froze. Adam, however, roared into action, tearing his blade from its sheath with a mighty rasp of steel. Who's there? Blake was a little slower to react, partly due to the shock she was going through at hearing what Adam was willing to do to all these innocent people, partly through general shock that someone had managed to sneak up on her. Even so, by the time she'd gotten Gumble Shroud out, the new figure had revealed himself, and Blake promptly fumbled and dropped her prized weapon. Oh, for the love of... Adam groaned, holding one hand up against his mask. Cover yourself! The girl cried as she snatched Gumble Shroud back up, trying to hide the flush on her cheeks. What the hell was with this mission? Listening to her, the young man brought his hands down to cover his, well, penis. Oi, hands in the air. Adam's blade lanced out, tickling the underside of the man's chin as the hands rose back up. Blake's eyes went wide as she looked away from his package. I'm getting some conflicting messages here, the man said, with more calm than he had any right to, given the situation. Despite having a blade beneath his chin, he still looked down to it to raise both brows to Adam. I'm not armed, but if you don't trust me, you could always give me a strip search. The blade clicked as Adam brought his other hand to the hilt, clearly prepared to pierce the naked man's throat. Adam, no! Blake said again as she pushed his blade aside. And you, cover yourself, please. Her red-headed partner snarled as he slammed his sword back into place, but at the very least, it was a step away from murder. When had her partner become so violent? Had he always been like this? Wow, he's kind of an ass, isn't he? And of course, there was that. Where did you come from? Where did I come from? That girl earlier. Blake's nose wrinkled. She kinda took my clothes to shield herself when she left. I think your friend killed the moon. Great. So she was stuck with her partner, who even now was arming a bomb that would kill all the people on this train, and a naked teenager they had caught, well, fornicating with some girl in the dust compartment room. Why the dust compartment carriage of all places? Get out of here, she ordered the idiot, pushing him away by placing one hand on his chest. She rigidly kept her eyes above his neck, even as she tried to ignore his bare skin against her palm. This was not awkward, she tried to remind herself. Forget what you saw and go back to your carriage. Yeah, about that. The man reached up to cross his arms. Blake's eyes twitched dangerously as she refused to look down. Didn't he have any modesty whatsoever? I couldn't help but hear your friend say something about killing everyone on the train. I'm going to have to say no to that since my family is on here. Blake, said partner called. What are you wasting time with? He knows our names. Kill the human and be done with it. Kill him? A defenseless innocent who was just in the wrong place at the wrong time? His only crime was wanting to protect his family. How could Adam ask her to do that? Do something like that? How could he want to do something like that? They were supposed to be revolutionaries working for equality, not monsters. I'm also going to have to say no to that as well, if you don't mind. Stop talking, Blake hissed, trying again to push him away. He wasn't helping to calm Adam down in the slightest. Or her, come to think of it, since, yet again, her eyes automatically glanced down before remembering what he wasn't wearing. Enough of this. Adam sighed as he pushed the final button. Loud beeps heralded the countdown of the device as he turned and drew his weapon one final time. Step aside, Blake. If you don't do this, then I will. Adam, please, let's think about this. I'm not sure I'm ready to be penetrated by something so big and red. Blake tried to signal the suicidal fool to be quiet. What did he think he was doing antagonizing someone like Adam? Unfortunately, the teen didn't seem to understand the message she was trying to convey. Do you think this is a joke? The redhead faunus laughed. I think that is a sword. I also think it's compensating for something. Don't worry though, I'm sure when the lights are off, some women might mistake it for the real thing. Oh gods, this was not happening. Adam's jaw hardened, a clear sign of impending violence, even as the naked man, who clearly had no weapons, also readied himself. What he intended to fight with, Blake didn't want to know. Either way, this was going to be an absolute disaster. Intruders, identify yourselves. The automatic words cut into the confrontation as 4 different SNE droids finally caught up with them, bursting through the back of the carriage before aiming weapons towards them. Adam tisked as he turned away from her and the strange man, leveling his blade towards the robots. Blake didn't think she'd ever been so relieved to see something from the SDC. Taking the opportunity to slip away from Adam, she slided up to the person who would get to live another day. Show them your train ticket, she whispered. That will make them stop and you can escape. The blonde turned to her, blue eyes filled with sarcasm. And where do you think I'm hiding that right now? He held his arms wide, allowing her amber gaze to roam up and down, enough to note the lack of any kinds of pockets sewn into his skin. Ah, right. Well, this day had gone downhill pretty fast. Eliminate intruders. Adam flew into action, Blake into the person beside her. She managed to knock the civilian aside before the security droid could shoot them, the two crashing behind a container as bullets ricocheted off metal. Sparks flaring close enough that she could feel the heat. With discipline that would have made a soldier proud, she managed to ignore the penis poking her cheek and the slight damp on the floor, which happened to be where the two had been having their little rendezvous. Don't think about it. Come on, we need to get out of here. He didn't resist, stumbling after her as she dragged him behind some cover, slowly making their way across the room as Adam decimated any foe he reached. She couldn't be here when he finished. If they were here, then he'd kill this man, and she'd lose her only chance of getting away. Was she really about to do this, after they had spent so long to get to this point? You might want to concentrate. What? Ah! Blake gasped as the man pulled her face aside just in time to dodge a swipe from a robot's arm that would have taken her head clean off. If he hadn't had done that. Okay, lesson learned. The middle of combat was not the right time to be having an identity crisis. The choice was simple. Side with Adam and watch a train full of innocent people die, or save them and leave him forever. The answer was obvious, but that didn't mean it was an easy one. I'm sorry, Adam. I can't do this anymore. The blonde man would be her first act of redemption, the first of many if she had her way. She'd work towards equality the way it should be achieved. In true Gumball Shroud bit through metal as one of the SDC pets tried to impede their path. Sparks flew as it fell hissing to the side. The two of them stepped over its remains as Blake pulled the teen towards safety. The door gave way as she slammed a shoulder into it, bringing the two out into the crisp air. The wind alone was enough to have the door slam shut behind her, whipping raven locks of hair to the side as red trees blurred by. But there was no time to enjoy the sights. "We need to uncouple the cars," she shouted to the blonde, raising her voice so that he could hear her over the noise the train was making. "Stay back while I handle it." She didn't hear his response as she grappled with the lever. This was her last chance to go back, to take the path Adam had presented her. Pulling it would forever sever those ties, make her an enemy to those she had once called friend. But it would also save so many lives. Eliminating intruders, golden eyes widened, glancing up in time to see the barrel of a rifle pointed at her face. The black robot, looking down at her, her lips parted, a scream about to tear forth as her life was snuffed out in a moment. Before she could even attempt to do the right thing. Before, with a gargling whirl, the rifle dipped. The robot fell down a moment later, slipping off the train into the trees. Blake didn't move for another few seconds, still wondering when her life would stop flashing before her eyes. A pair of bare feet stood before her, and it was instinct that had her eyes trail up to his face. She quickly purged the image of what she'd seen en route from her mind. How? The blonde stifled a yawn with one hand, the other behind his back, and he still didn't seem to want to cover himself up in any way. "I just reached in and hit the off switch on the back." "An off switch? On the back? What? No, never mind." The day was already ridiculous. She wasn't sure she wouldn't wake up any moment now to find that it was all a case of some tuner that had gone off. She didn't want to think about a naked man, killer robots with switches on the back, or her imminent yet now averted death. Instead, she thought about the lever in her hand, and the sound it made as she pulled it. Gears and metal grinding, a loud clunk as something gave way, before her eyes could see the axles parting as the carriages they were connected on at the same speed. But friction and air resistance exerted their toll on the dust containers that would be left behind. Adam stepped out then, and for a moment, their eyes met. "I won't say sorry," she tried to tell him. She wouldn't ask for his forgiveness, nor did she believe he would ask for it. Perhaps her old love would hate her. Perhaps he would feel betrayed. She only hoped he would understand. As a last vestige of her former life was drifted away. "Ooh, cold out here." The figure beside her quipped. "My nipples are like icicles." The words were enough to cut into their thoughts, a stark reminder of not only the temperature, but the fact that two of them were currently stood outside at a point where two trains had been decoupled. Two train cars that really shouldn't have been decoupled. When no doubt the driver had already noticed and was sending security over to have a look. It also reminded her that her new companion was stark naked, and now stood directly behind her. "Ha!" Blake pushed the door open as she stepped inside the warmer passenger's carriage. Trusting the idiot to follow, she didn't want to hear about his nipples, his penis, nor him at all. Damn it, this is the biggest moment of her life, the changing point that would determine her very future. Sorry. Did I interrupt an existential moment there? My bad. Yellow eyes narrowed as she glared at him. That was just a little too specific to be accidental. He actually was teasing her, wasn't he? A naked fool who had almost been eviscerated was taunting her. Look. She struggled for a word to express what she thought of him, yet couldn't find one. You. This didn't happen, okay? Out there, nothing happened. Young man! A feminine voice almost hissed. Blake's eyes widened, as did the blue of the guy with her. She didn't fail to note it was the first time he'd shown any real fear, but she could forgive that. Because the woman before her, she looked terrifying. Hi, Mum? This was his. So that meant the other girls arrayed behind her? Or with varying degrees of blonde hair? Ew, my eyes. One girl cried out, holding her arms up before her. Where are your clothes? Brother. Another sighed, massaging the bridge of her nose. Blake's mind whirled for an excuse. For a reason. Anything she could say to prevent the obvious question of why she'd been in a restricted area and how she definitely wasn't a terrorist, despite being a faunus and armed. But the chance never came. Instead, the old woman reached forward to grab the man she'd rescued by his elbow, pulling him into the group of blondes. Some of the girls made disgusting noises as they backed away, trying not to touch him. A taller one pushed some jeans into his hands as he started to get dressed in the middle of the corridor. To Blake's half-broken mind, she noted he still didn't look overly fussed, even when there were people watching him from nearby rooms. And you, the woman hissed, turning to Blake this time and grabbing her by the shoulder. Every muscle on the girl's body tensed as she prepared to break free, to flee and escape, throw herself off the side of the train. At least make my son work for it next time. I swear, we never did this in my day. And a second later, they were gone, leaving her alone in the corridor. Wait. Had that woman just accused her of... What the hell is with today? And we are asking for any passengers who noticed anything suspicious or unusual to come forward. The uniformed man called out to the assembled people. Blake hid near the back of the group, the bow from Gumbel's shroud wrapped around her ears. Damn it. Of course the driver had noticed the cars being uncoupled, and he had no doubt sounded the alarms that there would be law enforcement waiting at the station. This was bad. She could break through, escape into the crowded streets of Vale, but that would leave her haunted and alone. She couldn't return to Mistral, not when the White Fang was the strongest there. Atlas was also out of the picture, mostly due to the STC, and Blake hated sand, but it would be preferable to life imprisonment or worse. Golden Eye strained as she tried to pick out the guy from earlier. With all the chaos and embarrassment of what had gone on, she actually hadn't gotten too good of a look at him. At least, not his head. The top one. That was. But any moment now, he would step forward and rat her out. Of course he would. The fact that she'd saved his life wouldn't matter, not when she'd also been the one who had put it in danger in the first place. She was a terrorist, a funus. Those were reasons enough for law-abiding citizens. It was only when she felt someone staring at her that she finally found him, only to see Blue boring into her with an intensity she could feel despite the distance between them. Any doubt fled in an instant, that he might not have remembered, somehow, that he might have mistaken her in the crowd. He was looking right at her, and he knew full well who she was and what she had done. Blake's hands clenched into fists, legs tensing as she prepared to run. And then he looked away. No one? The soldier sounded bored, holding a clipboard before him. Another minute passed, another 60 seconds of tension piling down on her. Thank you for all your cooperation. It is more than likely the terrorist escaped into the woods. Please be about your day, and welcome to Vale. She was in, but how? Why? Blake kept her eyes firmly locked onto the floor as she passed through the checkpoint, half out of genuine confusion, half to prevent her distinctive yellow catching eyes. But as the crowd spread out and the Faunus renegade found herself along in the streets of Vale, she was forced to accept it. She was free. She had done it. She'd saved all those lives. It felt good. And the Faunus girl melted into the crowds. The choice of what to do for the rest of her life was answered. She never noticed the pair of blue eyes watch her leave. You're on your own now, Jean mused. The girl slipped away into the darkness, hiding among crowds of pedestrians as she made her escape. Interfering? He hadn't wanted to do that. But when it was his family on the line, he wasn't going to take chances. Blake did this alone all the time, or so he heard. But there had always been the small chance that she might have failed. Jean wasn't willing to gamble his family on that. He'd fought Adam before that happened, and almost certainly died for it. But this would be the last time. He wasn't going to get involved with everyone. This was just bad luck. Something he'd had to do to protect his family. There was no way he could change his mind now anyway. Not even getting to Beacon without forged documents. He was weaker now than he had been for God knows how long. Even if he had a sudden change of heart, he wouldn't even be strong enough to change anything. This was for the best. For everyone. Jean? Juniper's voice cut into his thoughts as she turned to grasp his arm. He winced as she looked at the nasty gash on it, which was slowly dripping blood on the floor. It was closing, or taking its time sealing the wound. What caused this? What happened? He took it back with a small smile, a low-key laugh escaping him as he looked back to where he'd last seen his old friend. Oh, he looked up to the blue sky. I found a small kitten in trouble, and had to reach into some machinery to help it. Good luck, Blake. Is that euphemism for something? Juniper growled. Wait, for the love of... I don't want to hear anything about what messed up sex games you were playing. Damn it, Blake. So that is the end of Chapter 4 of Not This Time Fate. We're in Vale for it appears to be a short weekend. Well, long weekend. Going to a concert, hopefully in the next chapter, hearing Weiss sing, and then other stuff. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe, like, and maybe even comment. I would really appreciate it. But yes, thank you. Have a good day.